All the day long, whether rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter, keeps a sharp lookout for sabotage. Sitting up there on the fuselage, that little frail can do more than a male can do. Rosie, the riveter.
Over time, the role of women in the American workforce has dramatically transformed our nation. This change did not come easily. While women are making great strides in the workforce and corporate world, they still struggle for equality in their chosen fields. In the 20th century, World War II was one of the major catalysts propelling the women's labor movement forward. As men answered the call for our nation's armed services, women moved into jobs traditionally held by men. This transformation can clearly be seen in the workforce at the Augusta Arsenal. The customary role of women before the war was as a homemaker, though some ventured into the workforce in fields reserved as women's work. During the Civil War, women were called upon to assist the war effort and comprised a large part of the workforce at the Arsenal. By the outbreak of World War II, mobilization was on a national scale unknown in previous wars. Women entered the workforce in ever-growing numbers. The U.S. government launched a campaign enticing women to leave the hearth and get in the game. Rosie the Riveter became a national symbol for female workers and a sign of their growing independence. She was the home front equivalent of G.I. Joe. By the end of 1943, 1 out of every 3 women in the United States was at work outside of the home. Demands on the Arsenal during the war forced expansion. 50 new buildings were erected and more than 1,000 people employed. For the Army, the Arsenal was a major center for refurbishing small arms and for artillery fire control equipment. Sites were tested at a tower constructed on top of the hill. The facility also manufactured bomb sights, lens instruments, and even telescopes and periscopes for submarines. Women worked alongside men in all aspects of operations at the Arsenal. One of the women who exemplified the female workforce at the Arsenal was Ruby McCrary Fadenauer. Ruby started work at the Arsenal in 1926 and at the time was the highest paid woman in Augusta. During her time at the Arsenal, she held numerous positions including Public Information Officer, writer for the facility newspaper, the historian, and even did radio broadcasts to support the war effort. She remained at the Arsenal for 29 years until its closure in 1955, when she then moved to Fort Gordon as Public Information Officer for 8 more years. Ruby later attended the newly established Augusta College, built on the grounds of the Arsenal, where she studied history and was a member of the first graduating class in 1967. She became a prolific writer. Among her publications were The History of the Augusta Arsenal in Augusta, Georgia, and George Walton, American Leader and Patriot Extraordinary. She remained active in local historical and genealogical organizations for the remainder of her life. Another prominent woman at the Arsenal was Minerva Warren. She began working at the Arsenal during the expansion of 1941 and eventually replaced Ruby McCrary. In 1946, she became the Civilian Chief Officer of Personnel, the first woman to hold the position. She received numerous awards including Army Rocket and Guided Imagery Woman of the Year, War Price and Rationing Board Meritorious Service Award, President Franklin Roosevelt Outstanding Rating for an Operator, and from Georgia Governor Talmadge, Distinguished Service Award for Outstanding Service and Aid in the Employment of the Physically Handicapped. All told, by the end of the war, 600 women worked at the Arsenal alongside approximately 1,500 men. As we look back today, one cannot but help admire the efforts of women like Ruby McCrary and Minerva Warren breaking ground for women of the 21st century.